they said AI was going to replace us. And then little do they know, Claude, I've already trained Claude to replace me in my daily work, which,
What CRO doesn't talk about, I want my sales reps in front of my customers spending more time. I don't want them doing back office. But then immediately they send out an email saying, I need more pipeline. The reporting sucks. Do all this.
Salesforce has now got to beat high agency people using Claude to adopt their product.
Our kids went back Tuesday, so which has been, I love my kids. It's been great. When does your kid go back?
He started Wednesday, so he's back.
Okay. Okay, we're good. Productivity will go back up the remainder of the year until fall break and Thanksgiving. But
Yeah. There was, when you said productivity though, I think with the onset of Claude and all of the AI, I think productivity, even during the breaks, have stayed rather high. Because now, like previously, stuff that I would need to manage or that would consume time, I've noticed like I will like shove it into Claude and walk away and then just come back and it's not 100% done, but like stuff that would have taken me time and I'd be like, don't bother, I need to block this out. And like now it gets done and then just got to, put a little shine on it.
yeah, I've noticed, like I was saying, I've been playing more with Claude Design, and I'd sign up for Figma, and I know Figma is people love Figma. It's a great tool. I am not a designer, and so I'm not and I think I still pay for it, so I got to cancel my subscription. But the Fig Jam is great for the kids, so I've been using Claude Design because it's kind of the easy button, and so it's been a good learning experience to go through the iterations and try to create more consistency around the visual assets, so it doesn't look like everybody else's. And apparently LinkedIn has this new AI slot button so people can give you feedback on if your stuff looks like garbage or too AI. So that'll be interesting, but it's been cool, but it takes a lot of time. So you got to kick it off and then come back 15 minutes later because it's so token heavy. I just feel like they're not, I don't know any of this, but maybe they're batching it or they're using for the, at least for the max subsidized subscriptions, they're whatever compute's free and they'll throw it on that. And the latency doesn't matter as much versus if you're running your product and using the API, I think they allocate a lot of the compute to the AI because that's where all the enterprise customers are and that's where the margin is. So that's just my hypothesis, but maybe it just takes time to do these things. So that's been interesting. And then we like you were saying with, I went ahead and pulled, I said, hey, Quick, right, which is Amazon Quick is our Claude Enterprise or Claude desktop app, and I use it daily. And it's like, hey, what are the most recent things that I've been using it for? Because I was chatting with a buddy at work as well about this. And so, you want me to? I'll pull this up if you're interested and show you. And I went to Gemini and I said, create me a visualization. So none of this is super secret. I said, hey, go ahead and
Yeah.
anonymize this and all that kind of stuff. It might be a little hard to read here, but so use Amazon Quick. I thought this was interesting. Executive comms, narratives, go-to-market strategy was a third, tech 30%, tech customer spend analysis was the third, and then ops policy and process policy lookup. So that was like, oh, here are the percentages. Perfect. Yeah. And then these are the actual functional use cases. So I got tech spend. So it's interesting. I was telling my buddy, I find myself going to Quick instead of you remember, oh, what website or what internal tool, how do I get to a ticket was this morning from my customer. I know they need some additional capacity or help. And I just couldn't remember the system because I don't live in that system, but it was 7 a.m., 6 a.m. my Teams time, and I needed to look it up. And so I threw it in there. And so I find myself doing that a lot more, actually ping my teammates a lot less because the Quick has the answer and I don't have to wait for it. And then I don't have to run the risk of them coming back and saying, I don't know, why don't you talk to this person? So it's been interesting, the different use cases, but technical product research asks, some of our new products, how they work, or maybe how do they integrate? Because I cover software builders with my customers' portfolio. There are any kind of good go-to-markets. And then we've got a lot of executive writing narratives, pulling things together. So Quick's pretty interesting because it has a knowledge graph. So it's got that Obsidian underneath, and it's got all the standard MCP connectors for Slack and Outlook, or your Office, your SharePoint, all that kind of stuff. It can plug into your Microsoft Productivity Suite. But then it's also got all the MCP connectors. So there's a ton of those in Amazon. So all these teams have built that. And so our internal knowledge resources. And then we've talked about this before, maybe most importantly for planning workshops is the phone tool or essentially your org chart. And so it can go and climb that. And so you can say, oh, who's a good, so I created 3 EBC templates. I think I told you based on what we did in Seattle. I said, okay, what if I wanted to do this in Washington, DC or New York? Given here's kind of that we want a similar agenda, but let's pivot and make sure we have a director or a VP for all the sessions. What would you, and so they said, oh, okay, they don't have any for open search, but we've got CloudWatch or observability. And would you like to pivot that or would you go public sector? So I thought it was interesting to reflect on this. So I don't know if anything kind of jumped out at you. I know you published your Substack this week on some of the stuff you've done, but it was kind of interesting to see how this is evolving.
That was actually really cool. I'm wondering for that, like that would almost be something maybe if you're an Amazon partner, that would be like a good like case study of, okay, how we're using, Amazon Quick. Just correct me if I'm wrong. You guys will sell Amazon Quick too, right?
Yep. So
yeah. Okay. But yeah, that would be even for you just publishing on your, like, that's almost like some sales, I don't know what you want to call it, but like sales material where you can say, look how we're using it as like the, sales collateral.
I was thinking I may download it and just use it on my personal and just do a day in the life of and just demo a little bit because it's none of these interfaces are that complex and a lot of the value comes from all the company context and data integrations and then your actual mailboxes and Slack. So and sometimes I'll do web research. I'll say, hey, so one of my customers published a bunch of their transformation activities that they've done around generative AI. It's really broad, customer service to marketing, to sales, to ticketing, operations, technical account management. And so I said, hey, just go check out basically just go document all of their web pages on this, distill all the use cases, summarize them, and then categorize them. And then now we're using that for, okay, this is what they've already built. Maybe this is where I partner with like a Salesforce and we can help. Here's an opportunity to co-build with another partner. And that's would have taken me, 8 to 10 hours of reading through everything. And then by the time I got to the last one, I wouldn't even remember the first one. And now I have this kind of curated catalog. And then the best part is then it stores that in the knowledge graph. So fast forward 6 months, I put in my meeting notes, conversations. It's like, hey, what should I talk about on this meeting with the CRO? And like, all right, checking history. And then it goes and looks at all your stuff. And then here are some of the top points from your last meeting and what you've discussed already. And here's what they're working on. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, that's sick. Yeah. Yeah. The product and all that goes into productivity too. Before, like, what you just walked through, like if you were to do that, 18 months ago.
Oh my God, kill me.
Right?
I wouldn't have done
it. You would have wanted to because you're like, oh, this would be great to do. But it's,
I would have had to pull the team together and said, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is what I want to do. Sell the team, try to get buy-in, try to farm out each one. Then you've got a TAM trying to analyze business development activities. You've got an essay. You just have completely different perspectives.
in a sense, it's almost made it like people with high agency, like boost and stroke our egos here, like us. You're like these pseudo, I guess you could say that we're polymaths at the core, but also like we're becoming like PMs, like project manager PMs, and then product manager PMs, then the GTM, and like all the strategy that comes into play. Cause like what you just talked about would be like, how do we herd all these cats? And before that would be like, I don't want to say an act of Congress, but like you said, it would just be like, I don't want to put the effort into doing this. Like
hills because you want to do it and you're trying to drag people and it's exhausting. And in B2B tech sales where you sell into a domain or a function or an industry, whatever you want to call it, you got so much depth and breadth, you just can't do it without help. And so basically Quicks, you're ride or die one team so you can go do whatever you want. And it's hyper intelligent and it doesn't talk back. So
yeah, it reminds me of a meme that recently, so I'm gonna go. I liked it, but I'm gonna go save it. But it had an image. I don't even remember what the image was, but just the text was like, they said AI was gonna replace us, and then little do they know, Claude. I've already trained Claude to replace me in my daily work, which is like true because a lot of us are like, for Salesforce stuff now, I just have a prompt where I'm like, okay, if an opportunity is set to or older than X day, add notes and update that I'll be following up. Or if it's set to close within the next 15 days, move that out 5 days. Like stuff that we
Yeah.
would have to manually go do. And I know that's very like SFTC administrative, but having Cloud replace me, I just have a prompt where boom, go do it.
I was listening to, I guess there's two things I want to maybe chat about. One is this whole GTM versus sales. I don't know if you've heard this or seen this on LinkedIn. So we should totally talk about that because I have strong opinions. But I actually listened to, I think it was the VP or SVP of Agentic products at Salesforce did the podcast with the GTM Now podcast. And he was talking about this. And this is what CRO doesn't talk about. I want my sales reps in front of my customers spending more time. I don't want them doing back office. But then immediately they send out an email saying, I need more pipeline. The reporting sucks. Do all this. And so with this whole move to headless, and I don't know the Salesforce full stack, but I think it's like Agent Cloud, and they've got different agents. So essentially, coming in Monday morning, instead of the sales rep spending Monday trying to figure out what to prioritize for the week, and then which account should I focus on? Okay, now I need to draft these emails. It just does it. Here's your list. Here's the starter things. And then the same on Friday, you put in, quote unquote, your entries for the week, update your opportunities. It just sucks in. I guess they made this acquisition kind of like a note taker. So it's sucking all of the text, distill it down to the 150 words that matter, and then it automatically up your pipeline without bias, right? And so you're trying to give the rep time back. That's the idea. I don't know if that leads to more sales.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the productivity that we keep talking about. And yeah, it's hard to say it's going to lead to more sales. Where I like total tangential, but like when you had talked about, how Salesforce is doing, and we use Salesforce and that we have Agentforce and all that. And yeah, that example you walked through is one of the prime examples for somebody, a GTM, a seller, account executive, SDR, whatever. The problem on this tangent that I'm going on is Salesforce has now got to beat high agency people using Claude to adopt their product. And what I mean by that is, yes, Salesforce agents can do that, but I actually just went into Claude early on and was like, hey, scan my inbox every morning, scan new leads, just tell me what opportunities are greater than 30 days, what they're trying to pitch you on that. And I have just Claude do it. I didn't have to use Agentforce.
So I don't disagree, but here's kind of a different spin on it in my mind. I think, so one, they're not going to sell to you. They're not going to sell to us. They're going to sell to the CRO because and they're going to pitch this, the governance, the consistency across all your reps, the systems that are in place so you don't have unbiased data. And then if you really have your high agency people, use our tool, or we're headless, connect to it. So I think they're just going to go about it like a completely different angle and basically try to push on the governance and consistency across their force, because that's what a CRO doesn't want, to have like a jagged edge, except for their top performers. That's my hypothesis. But
yeah, you probably nailed it 100%. Because it's easier because again, you may have those SDRs or even AEs who aren't like the most.
Yeah, like they need to be spoon fed. They're like,
Yeah,
what do we sell again? I slept
or
a
how
lot last night.
do I connect my Gmail? What do
Yes.
I say to
Yeah.
Claude? Like,
You've been on the Slack channels with your extended team with the no manager in it, and the questions that are coming out, and you're just wondering, like, how did you get through the loop? Do you not know how to use productivity tools? They're out there, and there's more than you think. So
yeah. Yeah. So I agree with you. Yeah, they'll sell to the CRO who will mandate it across the board.
Yeah.
But
But what I think you nailed, so this was the CEO of SaaStr, who I think you know his name better than I do. I can never remember his name, but I listened to the 20 VC podcast with him a lot. So he was saying kind of the hypothesis around why HubSpot may struggle, for example, is so Salesforce dominates the enterprise, right? And so they're going to continue. And I think that's where they're going to thrive, because that changing enterprises there's a lot of inertia. It actually favors the incumbents, right? But now you have all of these CRMs, like maybe it's an Atio or if it's an Apollo. I think Apollo's been around for a while, but Apollo, I didn't realize was like a CRM light. They do leads, but they also have workflows for emails and touch points and basic tracking. And then you have Atio and you have other CRMs. And to your point, if you've got a basic ass database and Claude, now HubSpot or incumbents have to compete with good enough prosumer products. So HubSpot, the very small businesses, the small businesses up to the mid enterprise, you're like, why do I want to give HubSpot $1,000 a month if I can just pay $100 for Claude and Apollo for another $200, right? And it's good enough, and they have an MCP connector. So I think you nailed it on that respect. There's going to be a lot of squeezing in the SMB and mid-market solution space because there's going to be so many more competitors.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think, yeah, there's just, and again, just like the high agency, because stuff I played around with, like, and I'm just going off on ideation, but like even with like artifacts now that are live and you can share them, because we previously couldn't share artifacts in Claude, but you can build like essentially like dashboards. And I don't think we're far off from even being able to like just use Claude itself as like a CRM. Because where I'm going with this is like it's ingesting my Slack now. And so when I post something in Slack and I say, oh, trust or ABC Corp, it marks that. And then when like somebody else goes into Claude and says, oh, hey, what's up with ABC Corp? They'll be like, oh, and it spits out. And so if you just have your purpose built artifact Claude dashboard for your, like, who are my top accounts? Like,
Yeah, especially if you've got less than 10 sellers, you're right. You need it, which actually brings up a kind of a great point. So I shared ours. We've talked previously about maybe I think you counted off the tools you use, and I think it was 4 or 5. So Apollo came out with their, what is this? I want to make sure I cite it correctly. So Apollo's 2026 AI in sales and go-to-market survey. And then we'll talk about the GTM versus sales stuff. But there's just one. Go download it. It was free for me. I think they would need your contact info. So just comparing to what I was talking about. Now I only have 2 accounts, right? So and you have a kind of a limited set of accounts versus if I had 100 accounts, I'll be using things differently. So the use cases change by your territory size, your solution size, your demographics of your ICPs, all that kind of stuff. But they put it as prospecting and research is number 1, outbound personalization, lead enrichment, CRM automation, marketing workflows, pipeline management, routing, /prioritization, deal execution, customer expansion, renewals. And it's a pretty big drop off after the top 3 in terms of this. And I don't know, it's none of this is groundbreaking. You're not curing cancer. You're enriching a lead, whatever that means. I know it can be valuable, but
yeah, honestly, like the top 3, like you said, and it falls off, but that top 3 is all, and this is no, like nothing bad here, but that's all just like DDR, like administrative, like headache work.
yeah, I think one of the quote unquote goals of this, the top goal was automation. We're back to RPA, robotic process automation goals of just data cleanliness, hygiene. So garbage in, garbage out. So let's fix that so we can consistently execute on this. So yeah, I don't know. It just feels very low hanging fruit, right? Like these are problems that have existed for the last 10 years. We're not reorienting our whole sales org around doing something new with AI. We're just trying to make what we do better. And maybe the sales cycle won't change dramatically, right? Because people still buy from people, even though CFOs hate that.
And I keep going back to, I remember it was like 2020, it feels like ages ago, but like 2024 or something. There was that meme that came out and it's, oh, OpenAI is going to kill all the skinny rappers. And then it was an image of Wiz Khalifa. And it was like a joke because it was like a handsome rapper.
Yeah, he's just good.
Yeah.
I think he's pretty ripped now. So he's pretty jacked.
Yeah. But and all those tools are just essentially wrappers. Because like all that you can be done now with just Claude. If you give me my Excel list and say, hey, here's my either like accounts I want to go after or a couple LinkedIn, however you're doing your prospecting, right? Engineering, the data enrichment, you just throw that all into Claude and the MCPs are there for Apollo or whoever your data enrichment, because the data enrichment has always existed. We've always been using Apollo. We've always been using like customer info. now it's just like the APIs or MCPs. And so now you're just like, here's my list, go clean it up, Claude. But
Yeah,
where I'm going is there's these companies, to your point, low hanging fruit. They said, oh, there's a problem. Let us wrap this, put a shiny, slap some lipstick on the pig and give them a UI and now call it a tool.
I agree. I think the only thing we're missing is people love their fiefdoms.
Yes.
And so marketing and the CMO is going to fight. We control the leads. We need to own the process for quality control and all this crap, which reminds me one of the great articles I read this week. A16Z talked about you've just hired 1 million bad employees. And I feel like we talked about that. Maybe this image was up before. So agent employees equivalent to human employees, right? So for those of you that are listening and can't see this, token maxing, AKA in the human world, throwing bodies at problems. Loops, and if you don't know what a loop is, just think of kicking off, hey, go finish this and come back when you're done, right? And the agent tries to do that. It's meetings about meetings. And they've got these great analogies of wasted tokens is headcount bloat. And it's just one of those, I agree, but people and fiefdoms and change management are hard. And they're gonna fight it. And you're just gonna revert to the mean, dude. Except for the orgs that are small enough that get it, right? And that's where high agency people want to work. And that's why these firms are kicking so much ass, is they don't have these problems.
Yeah. Yeah. But new products to go sell. So new quotas to meet.
Yeah. It's coming up with some interesting things. I don't know. It's interesting. So I feel like the GTM, like, let's talk about the GTM versus the sales rep title. I don't know why it matters, because it doesn't, but I feel like this really spun out of Clay. And I could be wrong, but because go ahead.
No. Yeah. I was just agreeing, like, yeah, like I'm shaking my head. Yeah.
Because Clay is unique in the sense that they have a GTM platform and they sell GTM services. And yeah, all of the reps can be GTM engineers, dog fooding they're building they're on their platform, and then they sell what they build essentially. So they can demo what they are, right? Versus I'm not going to demo a migration to SAP on AWS. That's not going to happen. And so sales is, in my mind, it's just pretty specific, right? You're going and you're building relationships, you're taking opportunities through a qualified pipeline, prioritizing, building relationships and that are new, nurturing existing, watching for churn, kind of the quarterback of the account. I guess you could call them whatever you want, but it's like it seems to me like they're touting this as a GTM engineer is like the evolution of a sales rep, or what an AE should have always been. And it's your point, with the people at agency are now the PMs and the prospectors and all the things, but I don't know.
Yeah. I know.
Respect.
Yeah. I saw the comment from PG or Paul Graham, like of Weiss,
Yeah.
Weiss. And he's, oh, what is this GTM? Are they just afraid to use cells in their title or something? It was like a knock in a sense. I guess my takeaway, and maybe I look at, and I've always looked at things differently, but I know that, and specifically for like YC, I believe there's like a question. I did the YC school. I never went to YC. I never got accepted to YC, but they do ask you like, what's your GTM? Now back then, 8 years ago, whatever, you know, it was just like, what's your GTM? And I think everybody's always known like what,
What's your go to market? What's your strategy? What's your ICP? How do you staff? Are you product led? Are you sales led? Right? Inbound advertising. Yeah.
yeah. And so like everything you rattled off, when you think about that, and maybe this is just me being like to think big, but all of that is okay. Revenue, like we're trying to figure out how we're going to make this company work and generate revenue. And that's going to include, like you said, like product led, sales led, like inbound, outbound, like all that good stuff that comes into it. So in my mind, I think account executives have always been GTM, because even as an account executive, you're a BD, and people will be like, oh no, account executives aren't BDs and BDs aren't account executives. But I could challenge you that if you're talking with a customer and they're like, oh, we want to like think about using Amazon Go back in the day or whatever, you would be like, okay, I need to get with the Amazon Go team. We're going to schedule a meeting with this customer. We're going to ideate art of the possible. Art of the possible itself is just BD, right? Like business development. How are you going to bring this product and get them to use it? And so I'm going off on a tangent, but I think sales, account executive, BD, go to market product, like all that stuff has always been like an account executive or a seller's like prerequisites, because you're getting customer feedback too on the daily when you're talking to customers. They're like, this product sucks, or why doesn't it do this? Your product manager may say, hey, I want to talk to your customers and ping you and be like, we want to introduce this new product. But the majority of the time you're talking to them, getting that product feedback and
Yeah,
then taking that back.
I agree. I think all of them are necessary in the full spirit of the life cycle. And so a great AE can always do more than just close or talk commercials or negotiate, right? So to your point, you- but I guess where I really, to me, an AE is someone who carries a bag, right? Very distinctly. Someone, they have the pressure, they have the responsibility of hitting the number. They're the ones that are facilitating, organizing, and ultimately responsible for the success of the territory and the deal. And they're the ones that are going to ask, like in a respectful way, how does this progress, right? What are the next steps? Because to your point, there's a lot of people that can come in and do art of the possible and what looks good, what does good look like? And then someone has to bring it back to earth and then put a scope on it and then tell them like, so what, where's your pain? How much is this worth to you? And do all of that kind of stuff. So super tactical. That's where my little baby brain thinks about it. But I agree with everything you were saying. So it's just an interesting, almost like, I don't know. It's entertaining if nothing else to see it. But
And for me, and this may be completely off, I never really thought of like account executives or account management as sales. And this, maybe I'm just like, you'd be like, dude, you're completely naive. Yeah, I always thought of sales as like, I think I default to like car salesmen or like cold calling insurance sales. Like for me, that's how I've always thought of sales, is like, hey, I'm just like a transactional, will you buy this product? Like this car? Will you buy this home for me? Like I'm in
yeah,
real sales.
I, yeah, I could see how you'd think that, or people would think that. I guess I put it under the umbrella of sales. But knowing, I say that knowing I wouldn't want to do that, nor do I think I would necessarily be good at that. Maybe I couldn't. I enjoy the little bit more complex, more things going on, and I'm better at that. And so I want to give that people who can do that successful, that is a skill and I can't do that. So I just don't want to avoid this tiered system of it. And but I understand like the salesy has a negative connotation and the transactions, but there's a lot of people, insurance is transactional and people build $1 million books because the whole like farmers, they call the insurance rep before they call the fire department, right? Like that. And there's always the outliers, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. I did want to tie off on a little bit of this AI bubble stuff. Ramp had this good index that came out just because this kind of is the underlying plumbing powering all this. So they always have some great data, right? So just to be a reminder for the audience, so they basically Ramp looks at all these financial transactions from a lot of different companies. They typically lean tech forward, so it's a little bit maybe skewed with that in terms of an early adopter. But basically, we saw this massive jump back in 2023 across all AI. It hit about 47% of companies in late 2025, and overall, we're up to over 50% now, 55.6 or 56%. But the kind of the takeaways here is Anthropic. So OpenAI is underperformed. So they've actually lost market share, even though the pie is growing. Anthropic is growth relative to what it was is actually decelerating in terms of it. But again, some of this is downward pressure given the larger market size. XAI, which I think is actually, I just read this article about and you sent me the Grok bot, right? But I didn't realize how much Cursor's been doing around Composer, the model they released of Composer 2 and 2.5, specifically around coding, which is the use case right now, where they compete on the frontier in terms of intelligence for coding tasks, and yet they're much cheaper per task, which is actually a little terrifying for me as a rep, because Cursor now and SpaceX and XAI are vertically integrated. And so OpenAI is not vertically integrated and neither is Anthropic. And so that's a really interesting way to think about this, because now you have the Colossus data centers competing with all the hyperscalers. You've got the GPUs from NVIDIA in there. Now you've got a frontier lab for coding, at least embedded in that in Cursor. Then you've got an actual harness slash which in the largest single vertical use case of labs and token LLMs, which is coding. And it's like, holy, you can't sleep on them.
That'll be wild. That per employee too. I remember back in the day, there used to be like the rough back of the envelope calculation. You would be like, oh, you could look at like the LinkedIn and number of employees and then do a calculation on what their monthly burn was of like, because you could say, oh, they have
Revenue
100.
per employee, and yeah, then percentage of COGS of revenue. Yeah.
But that you just said like $7,000 per month on the top. Add that on top of. So if you think about that, add
90
that on.
grand, 90 grand a year.
Yeah, on top of the existing, used to be like, let's just say it was like 15,000, which included their salary, like all their other services, healthcare and stuff. So now you're paying like 25,000 for your baseline employee.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. So here's why I think it's what's happening. So we're in this weird phase of the hypothesis being, I think we don't have a lot of good data on this. So we're assuming there are ROIs, which again, if you measure on a unit of a specific use case inside of a business org, but not in the output, it's a little bit, disorienting, like not disorienting. It doesn't represent the actual ROI for the business, but these popular things around loops, right? So set a task. Now the problem, actually, that's what I want to, not all loops converge. And so what this is saying though is essentially you get within the first 30 to 40% of attempts on this task to be completed when you set up a loop, it's the 80-20, right? The first 20%, you're getting 80% of the value, and then you're just spending more money. So at $1.40, you ended up for this whole task, it stopped at $4.50, but you didn't need to spend the extra $3.
Yeah.
And so these are literally just wasted tokens in terms of value creation. Now, did you learn something? That's a different statement. But I think you're seeing a lot of this where the article, the A16Z around this talks about you really have to tighten your loops and understand like what is the goal? How can you measure it? All the telemetry outside of the LLM that sits around it. And then, so not just the output, but actually like, what is it thinking? How's it going? The tool calls and the visibility, all the observability of that. And then you also have a way to fix it. Like it has to be able to like not rebuild the whole code base, but fix the function that was broken that's causing it to spin. So it's just funny. Like we have this AGI intelligence and now we need to create all the scaffolding around it to go fix the parts that are not deterministic so we can get the ROI. So it just feels like we're chasing our tail. It's funny to me.
I've noticed too, and I've seen some posts about this very similar, not with the loops, but where like somebody with little knowledge, I think it goes back to where we always joke, like, I don't know how to run a hedge fund. And so I couldn't ask Claude to build and help me run one. But there's like people who have very like narrow or little knowledge about something. And then they'll ask Claude, but it does the sycophant type response where it's like, oh, this is the right way to do it. So you're on the right path. And here's the, reasoning and here's how we do it. But it's actually not like, it's just giving it like the information that the user tended to probably be leaning towards and wanted to hear. And then I think one example was somebody was building something. They were in, go back to Salesforce. They had a very limited scope knowledge of Salesforce and they were asking Claude, and Claude was like giving it like the free out of the box version, like the $25 a month, whatever that you can get like for SMB. And they were like enterprise. And they were asking Claude, and it's, oh yeah, no, it works this way. And they're like, I knew it worked like this, but it was like feeding them the guidance from the standard version. And then they were just like burning through like tokens, like trying to get it to do stuff, and it wouldn't do it. And they were like, oh, Salesforce is broken because Claude says it's broken. But it's not, because the user was like trying to run a hedge fund and didn't know how to run a hedge fund.
Yeah, but they didn't know. There's no good feedback. I think we're just, this is what Andreessen Horowitz always argues. Every new technology is introduced a new class of jobs because the new technology solves old problems and introduces new ones. And so I know this is a little tech forward. This will be the last one I share from this one. I like it because it's the loop stack, and y'all should know most of this. So you've got your feedback and verification. There's only 4 layers. So the first one's feedback verification. You may have heard of Langsmith or LangGraph, LangChain. Langsmith is the eval. Brain Trust is another one. You've got human approval. So those are the automated evals. Then you've got human approval. Then you've got system of record like a GitHub or a Datadog. You've got your harness and your code, right? So this is Claude. This is your Claude models, your OpenAI models, but then plus a codex, plus a Claude code, plus a cursor, right? What's interesting, I hadn't heard about this multi-agent workspaces. So I'm not as familiar with this, where this is where the agent can maybe do the task. Like it needs runtime compute, right? It needs to be able to run some of these environments or do tools. Number 3, again, is a new one for me, control and state. Temporal, I just heard about this, so durable execution. I think this is more of like being, I think, stateful. So not just having something that just it did it and then the memory, once it's done, it like deletes all the memory. So it has some sort of like record and can continue over time and operate and actually not start from zero every time. And then you've got your full compute environment. So this is your execution substrate, your browsers, your mobile computer use. So that's more of like what the agents are using. So yeah, man, it's an interesting space. And so I think honestly, going into some of these companies, if you haven't worked in an LLM or lab right now, Agentic is blowing up like it is. This is the new stack that runs for all these agents. Might go work for some of these companies and sell some of this because you're Switzerland. You're competing with your peers in there, but you don't care if they use open, they don't use Chinese, they use OpenAI meant or Anthropic. You're like, dude, just use me for your evals, just use me for your substrate, use me for your workspace. Yeah, man, it's kind of interesting. Temporal, I've heard, is doing really well. So that's one reason. Kind of like a Supabase. They're blowing up because everybody's deploying a simple backend database on them.
And you raise a good point, and there's people out there selling it, and those companies are all trying to generate revenue because they're not, which then leads me to now companies have been complaining, or they've been talking about their AI spend, which has typically just been around like tokens and how much Claude and how much OpenAI costs. But now you have these other services that you have to layer in. And on that, it was 4 stack, I think.
Yep. Yeah, 4
Each
layers.
of another service that you need to pay for.
Some of those are open source, but they don't run for free. So then you have to, like a Langsmith, I think, is actually fully hosted. It's a PaaS or a SaaS. But yeah, if you're going to run your tools, you've got to spin up Kubernetes and run it on top of that, or you've got to pay someone a hosting fee. So yeah, it just adds costs for the compute.
Interesting. Where's all this money?
Free. Yeah, I don't know, dude. There was this great, I don't think we covered it, but on the technology podcast, I got his name here. There's a big technology podcast and it says, "Are we in an AI bubble?" And it's Paul Kudrowski. So he's a VC firm. And he's saying a lot of the labs and even some of these new AI firms are essentially positioning the investments as a call on AGI. And what does that mean, right? So it's a similar argument to how much would you pay to have a call on immortality? Infinite amount of money, right? In terms of discounted net present value, right? Because you're living forever. So you can always always be a positive return because you have forever to produce. And so he's actually saying it's kind of like weak sauce in terms of they come in and they're just saying, we don't have to look at the economics. It's just, we're going to get AGI. Do you want to be a part of that? Because then once we get AGI, then none of this matters. We'll just win. We'll be self-recurring intelligence and take off. And I don't know, man. It's just we're not seeing it yet. The ROI is not that clear cut. And so as we talked about, all the signs, the ramp data and the use cases, they're productive, but ramp, I think, said they're starting to see cracks in the AI kind of adoption. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. What's the old market saying? The market can remain irrational longer than you can remain.
Solvent.
Yeah. So like, same thing, hold your breath, hope your runway's long enough to make it to AGI.
Yeah. And that's what's crazy with all the labs is all this money, if they're subsidizing this, like eventually, so if they're subsidizing this to put Figma out of business or Canva out of business or this, whatever out of business, that's a long runway, man. And then you've got to get escape velocity of your revenue, which maybe they are with the Prosumer and Claude design, like I talked about, but some steel cojones down there, like irrational exuberance, man.
Yeah.
So,
I'll take the bet.
Yeah, but I'll sell it. Just pay me. So, like, I want my bounty today in my bank account. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
cool. It was good chatting. I hope you all liked it. Go ahead and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Give us a like. Super helps. Throw a comment in there. Refer to a friend. If you want to have questions, shoot us questions. If you have ideas for guests, send them our way. We'll talk to anybody. So, anyways, talk soon. Thanks, y'all.